Hello, welcome. Welcome to our third Fashion Means Business fashion talk for this particular term. It's actually our last before Christmas. It's with great pleasure that I welcome Freya Vermander, retail merchandiser of Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein, Netherlands, full price stores. Who's very kindly come today to share her expertise on challenges faced by both Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein, PVH, and the strategy that they have adopted in order to combat and offer some sort of solution to some of the challenges faced. So the fashion industry is one of the biggest industries in the world, generating $2.5 trillion in global annual revenue. That was before the pandemic. With governments taking different approaches as to how to contain the virus and limit its spread, fashion retail has been affected in varying ways. Fashion brands have been forced to rethink their business strategy, and the COVID-19 pandemic has acted as a catalyst for change. So welcome, Freya. Thank you today for coming to give us insights into the actions taken by Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein in recent months, in an attempt to alleviate the challenges you have faced and to protect business. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. And also, thank you for inviting me here. After all these months of home officing, I'm very glad to be able to talk to a group and share some insights about what we've been learning as an industry and as a business over the last couple of 6 months. I myself have been working at PVH for 3 years now. And although that I changed roles in my team, I've always been working in merchandising. So to your point, today I'm looking after the Tommy Hilfiger and the Calvin Klein full price stores in the Netherlands. I, of course, have a presentation prepared that I would like to share with you. And yeah, before we get started, I first want to take you through what I'll be discussing with you over the next 40 minutes. I'll get started with a short video. I think it's always nice to start with a short animation, which will give you an inside look into our company culture, but also in what PVH stands for and how it is to work for our company. Next to it, I will talk you through the organizational structure and what kind of brands we have in our portfolio. Then obviously how the last year has been for our company, so what the impact has been on our markets, and I'll have a focus on Europe as that is the market where I'm in. And I'll tell you something more about how we coped with it from a merchandising point of view. And then actually what we've learned in hindsight. So what are the long-term takeaways here, because the pandemic has obviously will have a long-term impact on our business, and it changed the way of working, and maybe not necessarily in a bad way, because there are definitely things that are here to stay. I'll first try to show you the video. Yeah, okay.
What I've seen and what I've been so proud of is not only the business we've built as a company with this transformation, but the corporate culture that we've been able to build. It's being driven by our associates to say, I want to be proud of the company I work with, and here's the values that I want to see in our company. I want to be part of a company that's transparent how they operate at the highest ethical values, and they feel a sense of accountability to deliver the business results and to be responsible for how we do business around the world.
For more than 135 years, our company has thrived because of the strength of our business model, because we represent and build iconic brands that people love, because we set high standards that drive industry change. We continue to flourish because of the culture we've created and the people who bring it to life every day. What started as a family business has grown into one of the world's most admired apparel companies, with our core values setting the path for our people from the first day they walk in the door. They're welcomed, accepted, encouraged to express their individuality, and empowered to grow and succeed. Just as we honor the uniqueness of each brand for what it contributes to the larger organization, our businesses embrace inclusion and diversity. It's fundamental to the way we operate. As people grow at PVH, they partner with others in global cross-functional groups led by talented experts, experienced professionals from design and merchandising to marketing and retail operations who listen to team members and help them grow with us. Our values extend beyond the workplace and into the communities where we live. At PVH, integrity means doing what's right and holding ourselves accountable for making positive change by eliminating waste, protecting human rights, and preserving the environment. We offer world-class benefits, an award-winning education platform, and invest in gender empowerment, giving everyone the opportunity to design their futures. Our company's impact extends beyond the tag on a shirt or the name on a pair of jeans. It is the product of a unique, close-knit culture, one based on respect, that rewards its people and provides them with boundless opportunities to be their best selves and power brands that drive fashion forward for good. That's the power of us. That's the power of PVH.
Yes, exactly. So that's the power of PVH. That's the power of our people. But next to the people, the product is also key, of course, just like in the rest of the fashion industry. So PVH operates 3 business groups, Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, and Heritage Brands. Heritage Brands is actually a portfolio of brands specialized in dress shirts, sportswear, and bodywear. So our company designs, sources, and brings to market all of these 3 business groups. We have 4 headquarters across the world, with the main headquarters of the holding still in New York. So there are the North American offices, then the European offices that also look after the Middle East and Africa. Then we have our Latin American office and our Asian Pacific offices that look also after New Zealand and Australia. In 2019, the company generated 22 billion of global retail sales, and the main contributors to this number were Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. Both brands are pretty similar in their size, but their performance is pretty different across the regional areas. So Calvin Klein is much larger in the Americas, while the performance of Tommy Hilfiger is much more driven out of Europe. Then I'm based in Amsterdam, so I'm in the PVH Europe campus, which is also home to Tommy Hilfiger Global. So this is also where Tommy Hilfiger design team resides, and also the HQ to CK Europe. So the design teams for Calvin Klein are still in New York. We have also local offices across Europe, because every country takes care of its markets independently. So that is why there are different local offices across the rest of the continent, which you can see here. So next to the Netherlands that I take care of, there are 7 different and other markets. This is only our own operated stores, so our own operated brick and mortar stores. That means stores that we run without any interference of any partner, and that we control ourselves in terms of product and stock. So as you can see, we have different design studios for both brands, so for Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein. And those studios are also divided per division, as we call it. So there is one team that takes care of sportswear, another for jeans, another after accessories and footwear, and then another for underwear. And as you can see, that these are all quite a lot of different parties interacting. There is an extra layer that is added, which we call the central planning and merchandising team. And on the one side, they try to align the different markets with each other. For example, they make sure that there's a minimal overlap in between the different assortments in the different countries, but they're also kind of the spokespersons for the different divisions in the brands to the markets. Then if we zoom in on the Netherlands, the country that I take care of, there are 22 Tommy Hilfiger stores and 7 Calvin Klein stores across 16 different cities. So this includes full price, the mono brand stores, and also the outlet stores. Next to this, again, this is only own operated. Next to this, we are well represented via our wholesale partners, so multi-brand stores, and also via the biggest department store in the Benelux, that is the Bijenkorf. So you might now ask what my role as a retail merchandiser is then. Well, actually, my job evolves around 2 main missions that you can see here. So on the one hand, there is pre-season collection planning, and on the other hand, there is in-season retail management. So first, I estimate the future size of the business, and I develop that financial plan into an assortment plan or into a merchandise plan in terms of budgets, but also in terms of product groups, in terms of number of options, and in terms of depth. And then once those buys are done and when we have the collections arriving and running on the floor, it is my job to monitor the performance of that product. So I continuously control the performance and I try to steer the performance of the product towards where we planned it. And that I do via planning trading strategies, such as, for example, promotional activities. I think that it's time then to dive into more detail about how the last 6 months have been for us as a company. Because, yeah, of course, we've been affected by the pandemic. And although that in the beginning of the year, or the COVID already reached Europe in the beginning of the year, in February, we did not feel a lot of impact of the crisis. However, we did we were faced with a sudden traffic drop in the first week of March, and that across the whole across whole Europe, with the biggest hit in Italy, because there the situation was, of course, most severe. And then it was decided continent-wise to close all stores in the 3rd week of March because of safety reasons. And it wasn't until the last week of April that we started reopening again, and that only in the countries where we could reopen. So in that sense, Germany and the Netherlands were the first countries to be fully operational again. If you project this on a timeline for the Netherlands, you can actually see that all of our stores were closed for 5 to 6 weeks. And although that we were never forced to close, we had to take that time in order to ensure that we were in line with the COVID measures. So in order to protect our salespeople and of course also to make shopping COVID friendly. However, during that time, we never stopped being in contact with our consumer. There were different ideas launched to remain in touch with our consumer. And one of those, for example, was the 1-hour bike delivery service in Amsterdam. We are in the Netherlands, of course. And during that activation, it was actually possible to order items from our stores here in and around Amsterdam, and then the items would be delivered to your house by bike within the hour. So then by the end of April, all our stores reopened again, and we got the word out by organizing a friends and family event where we actually invited all the friends and family of our brands into our stores during a certain time slots where we offer them our collections at a reduced price. In the beginning of June, we also launched our partner program with one of our biggest partners, that is Zalando. And we actually launched the idea that the project that already had been running in Germany, where whenever an item is out of stock on Zalando.nl, the order is actually immediately passed on to one of our brick and mortar stores in the country, and the order is fulfilled and sent to the customer from the store itself. Just like a lot of other brands in the industry, we kicked off our sale pretty immediately after reopening, because we actually wanted to attract sufficient people to our stores, and we ran our summer sale until the end of September. And it was then actually that Europe was hit by a second lockdown. So then all our stores in Belgium, in France, but also in the UK, and also partially in Italy and Spain closed. But we, as a country in the Netherlands, we were able to remain our stores open. And this was not always with a lot of success, but we were, however, able to run a very successful Black Friday promotion, and we have high hopes for our winter end of season sale that is kicking off this week. So I don't think that it needs a lot of explanation that all of these events have affected our business, and also asked for an adjusted merchandising strategy. And actually 4 main actions defined our strategy across the last 6 months in how we dealt with the whole situation. The first one is that we centralized the European stock pool in order to support the huge increase in e-commerce amounts on our own channel, as our online channels were at that time the only operating direct-to-consumer channel. In order to understand this, you need to know that all the countries in Europe run their markets pretty independently, and that is led by the local merchandising and planning teams. So they control their buys and therefore also their stock. So they have their own reserved stock, and that stock pool was then centralized in order to cater the high demand online. I also want to touch base on our product flow strategy. That is called our 360 strategy actually, and that defines our buying calendar, because we run 4 seasons that you can see on this slide. So every season has a different color, and every season is made out of 3 drops that we call customer touch points. The big advantage of working with the system is that we have new product coming in every month. And our promotional activities, or our markdown strategy, is also aligned with this product flow, aiming at reducing old products in order to make room for new inflowing products. So actually, when we closed our stores in March, we already had quite some, pre-spring product on our floor. That is usually more heavier products. But we barely had in any spring products, because we only had our February drop in at that point completely. So when we closed our stores, we lost a lot of valuable, relevant stock. Then that obviously we felt when we opened our stores, again 6 weeks later. Fortunately, this whole decision proved to be a very good decision, because actually e-commerce almost doubled its sales over the last year, and in that way compensated a lot of the loss that we suffered in our brick and mortar stores. You can see that prior to COVID, so on the left, the sales share in between stores and e-commerce was for both brands approximately 50-50, but that obviously changed to 65-35 post-COVID up till now. And the difference is even larger when you compare it actually to last year, especially on Calvin Klein, where you can see that last year only 39% was delivered by our online channel, and that increased to almost 65% this year. So next to the reallocation of product, it was also decided to or partially or completely cancel future seasonal collections, because of course we were anticipating severely decreased demands over the rest of the year, and we would obviously not need the same amount of product across the year. So in order to avoid product excess, it was decided to, where possible, cancel production of our fall buy. So our fall season we already bought into, but where possible, we deleted or we canceled certain drops that were, so as I said, canceled or postponed to another season. On top of that, there was a whole season that was cancelled. So we actually skipped a complete season, a complete production or winter pre-spring buy we never bought into. So that means that over the month of November, December, and January, we were not planning on getting any new product in. And actually, by skipping these drops, we definitely were thinking of, or we were missing out the biggest advantage of our drop system, because the biggest advantage of our drop system is getting in new relevant product every month, and very often every drop is also bringing in the most relevant product at that time. So what every country then did after all these cancellations was, in order to not miss any opportunities, as older existing product might not be able to do the same job, we did an exercise where we identified the needs for every country. So we constructed smaller and product group focused injections, as we call it, fast tracks, in order to completely cover that core demand and to cater the demand for local must-haves. And then last but not least, we also revised the size and the launch of our Spring 21 buy, which would be the first buy that we would launch normally again. We did, however, revise it because in August at that point, so last August, we assumed that by the end of this year or beginning of 2021, the business would have more or less returned to normal. And that is why we pulled the delivery of our spring product forward, because as I already mentioned, we did not have any new product coming in over the months November, December, and January. And next to that, we were also anticipating to fill our mid-season sale in April, which is one of the biggest trade events in the beginning of the year, to fill that with spring products. Because what we normally do is that we reduce our winter pre-spring product over that period. However, as we won't be having that season coming in, we increased our buy on spring in order to be able to have some room to reduce some spring product over that mid-season sale. 6 months down the road, I also think that we can start reflecting on the impact of COVID in the long term, because I can definitely say that in my job, I felt that we start doing things differently. And I don't think that this is necessarily a bad thing, because I do think that there are really good things that came out of this whole pandemic, and that there are certain things that we will keep on doing. For example, the first one is actually that this volatile market and these constantly changing trading conditions made it even more clear that we needed an even more agile merchandise strategy. Because we had to clear our stock to our online channel, we had buys that were cancelled, so we had to be able to run very careful analysis in order to assess every trade impact on future stock levels. So because I had to be sure that I would be able to sustain future sales until the end of this year, beginning of next year. And that is why I'm using a very detailed weekly sales stock and intake review tool. And this is a tool that on a very detailed level, so on division, gender, product group, seasonal level, but also week on week, gives me insight in how much product we would need, if there is a need, but also give me insight if there would be product excesses in certain areas. And that would then again steer my promotional activities. Since the outbreak of COVID, we've also noticed that the importance and the weighting of our different stores have shifted, because historically we always did the most revenue in the bigger cities. So cities such as Amsterdam and Rotterdam. But actually since March, we've been seeing that this has changed. So on the slide, you can see that normally, or last year, 35% came out of our A locations, and that drove back to only 30% in the benefit of our B and C locations. And that is because we have seen faster recovery in regional areas than in urban areas. The biggest reason for this is, of course, that tourism has been extremely low. So especially for example, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, but also for The Hague, for example, this has been impacting trade severely. And next to this, there's also the whole new working from home thing. That actually discourage people to go into towns. So they shop more locally, and the smaller cities are perceived as a much safer environment. So yeah, over the last 6 months, we've definitely seen our smaller stores growing, sometimes doing even better than last year. And this in a way has also impacted our allocation strategy, where we've been allocating more product actually to smaller stores. It is also very important to know, I think, that COVID has made us take a different take on our promotional activities, and has changed our promotional calendar. Because normally our promotional activities we used to clear stock. However, over the last couple of months, we've been working very hard to actually protect our stock. And that is why, for example, we skipped one of our peak trading events in the second half of the year, which is normally our mid-season sale that takes place in October. We did, however, as I already mentioned, kick off our summer sales straight away when reopening our stores, because we did need it to attract traffic and also to get rid or clear or heavier product that we were still sitting on from the winter months. But we were facing very challenging stock levels in lighter product, in products such as shorts, such as polos, such as t-shirts, so product that we never received at that point. So that is why we kept that product full price, and we excluded it actually from our summer sale. And what we learned is that there was still a full price appetite until the end of August. Even in the beginning of September, we were still selling polos full price. So actually, in hindsight, we can maybe say that we will never be that hasty again to go that aggressive into sale. And that maybe for the upcoming years, this is an important takeaway, because in that way, we are able to drive sales, to protect our margin, and to protect our stock. Next, I wanted to say that I already mentioned it, but COVID has definitely been an accelerator in the implementation or the rollout of this program. It has been a program that, with Zalando, a program that already been run in January for quite a time, and that has been proven successfully. It has been on, or it had been on our list for quite a while now, but the pandemic definitely put this into another on another priority. So at this point, it is you are able to order Tommy or Calvin product on Zalando.nl, and if the product is out of stock on Zalando, the order is completely fulfilled out of one of our own stores, and the consumer doesn't even notice the difference. So for us, this is a big win in the sense that it adds upon our sales, but it's also an improved, or it has also improved the consumer journey, and is actually a good example of how a good omni-channel experience should look like, because the customer is just buying a Tommy or a Calvin product and actually doesn't really care where he or she gets it. And then I want to wrap up with I think one of the most important takeaways, or one of the most important learnings, because COVID had definitely an impact on the mentality in our business, and also on the mentality of the people in our business. And I definitely felt it when replanning the business, because I think that the pandemic has moved our business from ambitious growth planning to realistic sales planning in order to avoid product excesses. It actually made the business more risk averse. And in order to fully understand this, I think that you have to understand that the size of a buy is completely dependent on the accuracy of your sales projection and on the accuracy of several components that you add up to that sales forecast in order to drive out a buy value. Those are first markdown value that allow for to run promotional activities. Second, end of season value, because in the fashion industry, you're faced with a lot of stock fragmentation, but a lot of damage, etc. And also a small budget that can be spent on in-season open to buy or in-season OTB, that whenever we arrive in season, we can still buy into capsules, for example, or replenish product that is selling very well. All of these components make up the total buy, the total seasonal buy. And I don't think that it's very hard to then understand that whenever you are only slightly overambitious in each of these components, that this adds up to an inflated buy value, and that you then are likely to end up overstocked and be faced with a lot of product excess. So COVID definitely made the business more aware of this problem, because, well, most people are very, very scared of having too much capital tied up in inventory these days. So I do think that this pandemic has helped our business move towards more healthier business planning, as I would say. Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to share with you. Thank you for your attention. I'll be here for some more questions if you have any questions about what I just told you, and else you can always email me. Yeah.
Freya, thank you very much for sharing insights into solutions to potentially, initially we thought was something very challenging, but actually you worked through it and came up with some solutions and potentially future differences to how you're going to buy and plan in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Really very interesting. Thank you. We have opportunity now for questions. If anyone would like to ask questions from the floor, please type your questions in the question box. So we have a question here, Freya, from Julie. Do Zalando own the stock on the partner program? How does that relationship actually work? Because that's been really beneficial to you in this challenging times.
Yes, exactly. No, so the stock remains completely our own stock, meaning the moment that the order passes over to our side, so the moment that that certain item is out of stock on Zalando.nl, the order moves on to our stores, and then that order is fulfilled out of our own inventory. We do pay a commission, of course, so in that way it is a partnership. It is still a business model, but the stock is our own property.
Brilliant. Okay, and then we have a question here from Sarah. What was the learning the same across all locations? So giving thought to trade, promotional calendar, you know, did you see the same patterns across all of your store locations?
In the Netherlands then?
Yeah, although perhaps that might be a question across the business as a whole, maybe just not Netherlands. I'm not too sure by the question that's asked, but perhaps across Netherlands, and then perhaps if you could throw some light across the wider domain, that would be great as well.
Well, actually, across the Netherlands, as I've already mentioned, we've seen some big differences in between the locations, actually, especially around the months June, July, August, when we had higher traffic, when we were running a pretty successful sale. We actually saw that, for example, stores in the northern and the eastern part of the country that are not as populated, we're doing pretty well. And actually in certain locations, we had better weeks, we had better periods than even last year, because actually people did not have monies or did not spend their money on travel, nor did they do on restaurants or on going out. So I think that the national sport here in the Netherlands has become walking. And well, if I talk out of my own experience, when I go for a walk here in the city, well, I do live in Amsterdam, but if I would live in a smaller city, if I would go take a walk in a smaller city, then I would also start shopping. And I think I would feel more tempted because, well, that's actually what you do now, right? And that's what we felt in the northern and the eastern part of the country, as well in the southern part, because, for example, as I already mentioned, in Belgium, restrictions were stricter. So there, our southern stores were also able to attract more people from across the border. So for those locations, we've definitely seen other trading patterns comparing to the more centralized cities. And if I then have to speak for the other countries where I'm not specialized in, of course, so I'm just speaking from news that or from internal communication, is that, well, yeah, I do think that it has been tougher on different countries, such as the UK, such as Belgium, such as France, for the simple reason that they had to close for another 8 weeks. So as I already mentioned, certain productions have been postponed, have been cancelled, but that was product that they as well already bought into. And so the UK is, next to Germany, one of our biggest markets in Europe. So yeah, that will definitely have an impact on our trade.
Yeah. So a question here from Nicole: what kind of technologies or solutions did you adopt during the pandemic to help improve the e-comm experience?
Well, I can't really speak for the e-commerce experience, because I focus on brick and mortar stores. As far as I know, the site on itself has been, there haven't been so many adjustments to the site. It's more, I focused more on the product side of it, meaning that in order to cater that surge in demand, actually all the stock that we had reserved for the brick and mortar stores across whole Europe was actually given to e-commerce, because they were facing so much demand that they couldn't keep up with it, with the normal product that they bought into. Yeah, and again, I mean, we felt it in our store network. We really felt it the moment when we started opening up, that we had to give up so much product. But in the end, I do think that it has been a very good decision, because we were able to clear that product and to make money out of it.
Yeah. Actually, there is a question here from Artem asking about what you did with any unsold products, but in some ways, it sounds as though you managed your stock so well using the WYSI, the weekly stock sales and intake document, that actually perhaps you didn't have much unsold product.
No, and that's also a big insight, and actually something that we never expected, is because what you would read in the media is actually that the fashion industry was faced with so much product, and that was also the fear that I was having. Yeah. But if I reflect on my own business, due to the fact that we had so proactively reacted on the fact that e-commerce was growing so fast, and we gave away everything that we had, actually, and then due to the fact that we're working with that drop system, we had a lot of product that we could not offer to our customer. And okay, we were still sitting on quite some old product that we already had in February, but well, in August, that is not a relevant product anymore. That is not product that you sell at that point in time. I think that over the months July, August, September, 60 to 70% of our revenue is done with spring product, with product that is designed and produced to bring on our shop floor over those months. And that is not the aim of it is to clear it during those months and not carry it over to other future months. So yeah, we definitely did not have the big problem of unsold stock. Also, I have to add that if we have unsold stock, we have a very well functioning outlet network. All product returns that we have in our full price stores, we send to our outlet stores.
Yeah, and actually you showed the structure right at the start of how that works across your stores. Question here from Neil. If you knew in February the impact of the pandemic on the business and what the outcome that was going to bring, I suppose, would you have done differently? Would you have done anything differently knowing what you've learned from this year?
Well, I think that there are two things. Mm-hmm. First of all, I think that I would have been more careful in releasing all of our spring stock, because mm-hmm. actually what we are facing now is, we face very unbalanced inventory levels over the months of so July and August. We did not have enough relevant product, and by now we do fear again to have too much product, because as I already mentioned, by August we were actually thinking that 2021 was going to be normal trade again. So that is why we increased our buy from February onwards again. But knowing what we know now, I don't think that we will go to normal trade again by end of January, February, or even March. We do not know. I mean, yesterday there was even talk about a third outbreak. So there is so much uncertainty. And so definitely, I do think that I would have been more careful in reallocating our spring stock. And at the same time, I would have been more careful in reforecasting our spring 21 buy to normal levels again.
Yeah, hindsight, it's a great thing, isn't it? Just another question about Zalando, actually. If Zalando doesn't own their stock, how do margins work between them and the brands? So sort of model do they work to, Zalando?
Yeah, so Zalando is one of our biggest wholesale partners. And I have to honestly say that is a partner that is managed from our German office. So again, I don't have specialized expertise in this account, but I do know that it is one of our biggest wholesale partners. So even Zalando.nl makes part of their German account. And yeah, it's a wholesale partner, so that means that they pay the wholesale price for every product that they buy, and they own the product the moment that it is shipped and published on their own site. However, for the partner program, there we work in a different model, in the way that, as I already mentioned, so the stock remains our inventory or product up until the moment that it is actually shipped, or that it is property of the customer. And then we pay a commission, and that commission is fixed. So it's more like kind of consignment model.
On your sales?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Can I just ask, actually, this isn't one of the questions in the chat box for you, but so if you were to sell the stock before, I mean, is there a portion of your stock actually allocated to Zalando in that particular, reallocated, or are you sort of both going from the same stock pool?
No. So it's not allocated to Zalando, or we do our allocation on store level. So we from our basic buy or initial buy that is allocated to our stores, depending on share mix and historical data, etc. And then Zalando orders go off a priority list, meaning that whenever something is out of stock on their side, there's an order passed on to one of our stores, and we do own the priority setting of that list, meaning that our biggest store fulfills most of the orders, and then it goes to the second on the priority list, etc. But we only allocate our allocation strategy is store, and we consider those Zalando orders also as a store sale, up till now at least.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, great, thank you. Question, I suppose, Zalando online business. Will you move your focus more to online, do you think, or will physical stores still play a role going forward in the new normal?
Yeah, that's a big question, and I do think that, well, of course, e-commerce has been growing so largely and has helped the business to overcome, at least to compensate in a way. So I don't think that we will go back or that there will be a reverse. But I do think that there's a future for stores. However, I think that it will be a big challenge, and especially I think that it will still be a big challenge for our company to integrate both channels into each other. Because today we do have some projects running around omni-channel. So for example, there are pick up in store or order in store, all these kinds of initiatives that we already run. But I think that there's still a big work to do in integrating an online experience, and also the online experience on all the different partners that we have, because we run on Zalando.nl, we run on Zalando, on the Bijenkorf, we run on so many other different platforms, that there are so many opportunities actually to integrate all those online touch points with our store network, that I do think that there's still a lot of work to do. However, I don't think that this will be the end of physical stores. I do think that it will become more as a touch point, and it will be more about experience and about talking to the customer than maybe a point of sale. But then again, there's still so much work to do to completely seamlessly integrate all these channels with each other, that I don't think that we're there yet to abandon our brick and mortar network.
And you did say that as well as your pastimes, when you go for a walk, you like to also shop. So, it is something that we as individuals enjoy. So the actual physical experience of shopping.
Yeah, I think it's a way of filling your time. And at this point, with everything being closed, that's actually the only resort you still have left. So I do feel that people kind of rediscover shopping again. Brilliant.
So just looking at consumption, have you seen any dramatic changes in the type of products that customers have been buying in a sort of pre-pandemic compared to sort of now, I suppose?
For Tommy, that has not been the case, to be honest, as well. There's a big trend going on into casualization, and a lot of brands are calling out that they're selling more leisure wear instead of occasion wear, etc. However, in the Netherlands, for Tommy, what our biggest categories are sweaters, hoodies, t-shirts. So that is already very casual, and we've not seen that changing. Those are still one of our biggest categories. However, now we're going into full winter, and we do see some challenges on outerwear, because I think that maybe people don't go outside maybe that often, or they don't go traveling, so they don't need that heavy outerwear. However, on Calvin Klein, as underwear is there still the biggest part of the business, we have seen that we've been selling much more loungewear, whereas before that was always kind of a slow category. We are selling much more joggings, t-shirts, pajamas, all that kind of items.
Yeah, comfort around the house kind of product.
Yeah, exactly.
So Frey, you talked quite a bit about the shift in your store grading. So the focus moving away from your city centre stores to your more regional stores. There's just a question here from Julie. What challenges will the store grading pose in future? So I think she's referring to non-COVID timeframes. So, you know, is it easy for you to change your store grade? I mean, what do you think the future holds, I suppose, from a store grading perspective?
Well, to be honest, I think that in the future, what we are seeing now is actually also something that we have seen prior to COVID, in the sense that, not traffic-wise, but we have seen that the most interesting locations are often locations that are not prime locations, because prime locations are often very expensive in terms of rent, etc. So you need kind of a certain level of traffic to justify your location at that point. Also, at this point in time, we're still running 2 different Tommy Hilfiger concepts. So the casual Tommy Hilfiger division, and then our sport or jeans divisions. So, for example, in cities as Amsterdam and Rotterdam, we sometimes have multiple store locations where we pay. So 2 different rents, 2 different locations. So I do think that in the future we will be more looking into consolidating locations, running maybe both concepts in order to synergize costs and exploit revenue, of course. And I also believe that maybe in the future, those regional areas or the regional stores, will remain more worth it. And while, of course, the bigger cities, I don't think that their brand is ever going to go away out of these big cities because of image issues and etc. But I do believe that the smaller cities will have, or remain to have a bigger contribution to the whole.
Yeah, and I suppose at the moment it's not clear yet whether post-pandemic there will be a sudden shift to everybody going back into work, or whether there'll be some lessons to be learned from COVID, and whether it'll be more of a blended working approach where there'll be a few days at home, a few days in the city centre. So yeah, potentially that could have implications also on your regional stores. Yeah,
exactly.
Eloise is asking a question. What do you think will be the key drivers or key themes for 2021? So she's actually just referring to sustainability. There's been a lot of chat about the fact that because we have slowed down and calmed down, a lot of our airplanes have been grounded and we've been less likely to jump in a car and travel. Actually, we're seeing cleaner skies. Do you think there's any indication of sort of any themes that you think you should be mindful of looking ahead to 2021? Any sort of trends, I suppose?
I think that casualization is definitely something that we will be picking up more and more. It's also, for example, for Calvin, we've noticed that leisure wear and performance is a category that is picking more up. So that's definitely then something, that's definitely a tendency that we're going to integrate more and more in our buys. So adjusting budgets, allocating more budget to that kind of category. On the other hand, I have to say that sustainability for Calvin as well as for Tommy has been a big topic for a couple of years, but that comes more from within. And we as countries, we are markets, we are informed and we are kind of integrated, but I mean, if the production is changed, there is only, we have to buy into the product. So we then, we buy into more sustainable product directly. So that's definitely a topic that is much more related to production. So maybe I'm not the one to talk about that topic then. But I do feel that, for example, in terms of production, in terms of, for example, the production of denim pants that Tommy and Calvin are making the right moves into the future, working towards sustainable procedures in order to produce denim in a more green way, because again, denim pants for us as a country is the biggest product group, but is also one of the most polluting product groups in the whole fashion business. So if we can arrive at that point where we are sustainably producing denims, then I think for us as a business that will be a big win.
Yeah. A challenging task, I suppose, but definitely possible. I know there's lots of innovation in denim production, the way that we wash denim, the treatments we put on denim. So potentially over the next decade, it might be something that is achievable, which would be great. There's a question here from Abby. With lockdown, you saw a shift towards online selling, and in fact you pulled your stock for your online business, but then your store started opening up gradually. Abby was just wondering whether there was any sort of incentives or enhancements you did to your bricks and mortar store to try and encourage customers to come to your physical stores.
We did run quite some marketing activations. For example, there were quite some competitions that were organized in our Calvin stores, some photo shoots actually that were organized in our underwear stores, but also in our Tommy Hilfiger flagships. We hosted breakfasts styling sessions, all these kinds of ideas that our marketing teams worked very hard around to just pull people into our stores. Next to that, we've also launched an online reservation system because we did feel that a lot of people were still worried or maybe scared about coming into a physical retail store. However, we then opened stores after closing hours and made it possible for people to book a time slot in which they would be sure to not queue, because actually we do have restricted numbers of people in our stores that are to be restricted at every time. But then you might run into the problem that you have to queue in front of a store, and then you might still feel annoyed. So by opening up reservations booking systems, we kind of avoided that system, because you would be able to go in directly to do your shopping directly. It was not the same as a personal shopping event, but it did offer the opportunity, at least, that people to come and shop safely.
And was that well received by your customers?
In the beginning, not well. In the beginning, it was rather hard to attract people, because it was also something that we never did before. However, we did launch the same idea again with Black Friday promotion, because we were expecting much more traffic at that point. And then we did get more reservations and more people in, and were able to offer that services in a more successful way.
Brilliant. That's great. So we're coming very near to the end of the session. You do have a question, Freya, but it's about a UK designer outlet store. And I know that your specialization is the Netherlands and it's full price. So I don't think I'll be cruel enough to ask you that question. But I would just like to say thank you very much for your time today, and for the time in preparing all of this, because I know you've been busy sort of trying to consolidate everything together in the deck of slides that you presented today. But really very grateful, and the fact you had so many questions, I think, speaks volumes that it was well received by all that attended today. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm very happy to hear. Thank you for having me again, and thank you for all the questions. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, and have a great Christmas, I suppose. It's not long.
Yeah, not anymore. You too.
And I think you've just got a few thank you messages coming into the question box. So yeah, some really positive thanks, great insights. So yeah, thank you very much.